Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the preview for the 2022 French Grand Prix, the first race in the final doubleheader before the summer break. Yes, we really are at that stage of the season already. And actually, it's the first race of the second half of the season. It's absolutely flying by, but there's still lots of action to come between now and Abu Dhabi in November. Now, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. This isn't one of my favourite races, and I'm fairly sure I'm not alone on that one. But for all the grief we give it, Paul Ricard actually gave us an alright race last season. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get a good one again this weekend. And it could well be the circuit's final one. So maybe it'll go out with a bang. Although Carlos Sainz and Ferrari will be hoping not too much of a bang. Anyway, as always, lots to get through in this preview. So let's kick things off as we always do with a look at the track and all the stats that follow. So last time out, F1 was in Austria for the shock horror Austrian Grand Prix, but now it's on to Circuit Paul Ricard in France for round 12 of the season. A lap of the Circuit Paul Ricard is 5.842 kilometers long. That is just over 3.6 miles, if that's what floats your boat. Yeah, that's the line I went with, and is made up of 15 corners. And on Sunday, we are set for a total of 53 racing laps. There will once again be 2 DRS zones unchanged from last year to help with overtaking, with the first between turns 7 and 8 on the run to the chicane, which is a good spot to make a move, by the way, with the second zone, as you might expect, down the start-finish straight. The race lap record belongs to Sebastian Vettel, who posted a 1:32.740 in 2019. And last year's fastest race lap was a 1:36.404 set by Max Verstappen on his way to victory. The Dutchman, of course, passing Lewis Hamilton for the win on the penultimate lap of the race as he led the Brit home. And teammate Sergio Perez took that final spot on the podium. Actually, Checo himself making a very late move on Valtteri Bottas to grab that P3. As a matter of fact, he made the move on lap 49 of the race, meaning there were just 4 laps remaining once he crossed the line. Yep, 4 laps, just the 4 laps. And 4 is, of course, the number of wheels on an F1 car. Well, at least that's what they start on. Yes, it is tyre talk time. The compounds available for... I'm not going to lie, that was terrible. That was not my best work by a long way. The compounds available for this weekend are right down the middle of the Pirelli range. And they are the hard C2, the medium C3, and the soft C4. Now, this circuit is a nicely balanced one with a mix of slow and high-speed corners as well as some long straights, and it puts a lot of stress through the tyres. So this could be a multi-stop race, although it tends to be a one-stopper. But we have got some hot temperatures forecast this weekend. More on that in just a moment, so that might change things a little bit. That said, most of the field pitted just the once last season, with Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc the only drivers to pit twice. It did pay off for Max, though, as his two-stopper allowed him to go from mediums to hard and then back to mediums again to chase down Hamilton and snatch that victory I talked about a moment ago. There is an interesting line in the Pirelli press release, which is worth a mention as well, especially for newer fans who are wondering what all those lines are around the track, which give you a headache by the end of the weekend. And that is that drivers will want to avoid going off track, as those red, white and blue markings in the runoff areas contain a high friction material designed to slow cars down quickly, which also means there is a high risk of flat spotting the tyres. And just some safety car info for you as well. They're not all that common really at Paul Ricard. Since its return to the calendar in 2018, there has only been 1 full safety car period, although we have had a couple of VSCs. There is quite a big pit lane lost time around the track, though, at around about 27 to 28 seconds based on the stop we saw last year. So as an example, Hamilton's tyre change was 2.2 seconds and his total pit time was 30.2 seconds. So expect a lot of sudden stops if we get even just a virtual safety car. As already touched on, it is expected to be quite a warm weekend, with the forecast at time of recording saying that Friday will see highs of 34 degrees for FP1 and FP2. It should be cooler for FP3 on Saturday, but it jumps back up to 34 degrees for qualifying. But on Sunday, it is expected to be a couple of degrees warmer, with highs of 36 degrees for the start of the race. It should stay dry too, with a less than 5% chance of rain across the whole weekend, so as good as no chance. As always, though, that is the forecast at time of recording. There is still plenty of time for that to change between now and the weekend. And your schedule for the weekend is once again the usual European times, because we're racing in Europe. I know, shocker. So as you'd expect, FP1 kicks the weekend off on Friday from 1 PM BST, with FP2 getting going later that afternoon at 4 PM. The final practice session on Saturday is from midday, with qualifying underway from 3 PM. And it is lights out for the race on Sunday at 2 PM. And once again, that is in UK time. Now, before I do the flashback and, let's be honest, butcher some more predictions, let's have a quick look at some of the talking points and things to look out for ahead of this weekend's French Grand Prix. First up, we are once again expecting to see some teams bring some more updates to this weekend's Grand Prix. Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda have said that AlphaTauri will be bringing some major updates to the car in France with a focus on aero and adding more load to the car to try and tackle the struggles they have had in the medium to high speed corners. Meanwhile, Williams has confirmed that both cars will be fitted with the upgrade that Alex Albon has been running over the last couple of weekends, so some good news for them there. However, there won't be any major updates at Haas with the long-awaited package not arriving until next weekend's Hungarian Grand Prix, and Gunther Steiner has confirmed that will be the last changes made to the car for 2022, as the team will now switch focus to next year because, and I'm going to quote him here, there is much more gain in that than keeping on pushing it and putting money into this year. Toto Wolff has also confirmed that Mercedes will be bringing some new developments to the W13 in France as they chase down those final few tenths to the top two teams. I should say as well, this isn't an exhaustive list of updates. These are just the teams that have 100% confirmed them at time of recording. But to be honest, I'd expect most teams to bring something. Esteban Ocon, by the way, says that the updates Alpine introduced at the last couple of races have been very positive and made quite the difference. And that has been reflected in his results, to be fair. Reliability will likely be a factor this weekend as it is set to be a hot one, and that instantly raises concerns around Ferrari, especially when you look at the issues they've suffered of late. And Mattia Binotto admitted after the race in Austria it was a concern, but the team is working hard to solve the issues back at base. The big question for this weekend, though, is will Carlos Sainz need to take penalties? Well, according to reports in Spain and Italy, he will need to take a fourth unit this weekend. And if that is the case, it would see him start from the back of the grid. It must be said, he does still have units, of course he does, but the mileage on those is high, and one outlet claims that they have already reached their limit. And you know, looking at the damage done to the car in Austria after that blow up and that fire, it's kind of hard to see how he won't need a change. So I fully expect him to at least take some new components, and perhaps he'll go for the full lot. I mean, if you're taking a couple of components, you may as well go for all of them, really. It must be stressed that this is just according to reports, and at time of recording there's been no official word from Ferrari, but if anything is confirmed between me saying this and this video going out, then I will pop a link to an article explaining more in the description and pinned in the comments. And finally, Nyck de Vries will get his second FP1 outing of the season at Paul Ricard as he replaces Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes for FP1 on Friday. De Vries got behind the wheel of Alex Albon's Williams earlier this year in Spain, where he outpaced Nicholas Latifi, and now he will get another chance to try and impress as he takes the W13 for a spin. Why is he getting the opportunity to drive the Mercedes though? Well, for those who didn't know, from this season, teams are required to give drivers with a limited F1 experience an opportunity to drive in each of their two cars at least once per season. And so George Russell will have to give his seat up to someone later this year. If you want me to speculate, how about De Vries again at Zandvoort? Just saying. And whilst we're on the subject of Mercedes, this weekend could be a very strong one for them because the track is pretty smooth and so bouncing should be kept to a minimum. And with those upgrades due that I've already mentioned, they could be a team well worth keeping an eye on in France. And elsewhere, super quickly, it has also been confirmed that Robert Kubica will be taking part in FP1 on Friday and will be driving Bottas's Alfa Romeo. Time to take a look back at a classic race in France, and for whatever reason, there is one race that always springs to mind when I think about F1 in France. Sure, there have been some crackers over the years, probably races way better than the one I'm going to pick, but I just remember this one so well, and so let's flash back to the 1999 French Grand Prix at Magny-Cours. And just quickly, yes, it's another race from the 90s, but the whole point of this section is me looking back at a race that I remember, and this was my era of F1 growing up, so the 90s and early 2000s will always feature prominently. Anyway, rain hit qualifying, which gave us a properly mixed up grid, with Rubens Barrichello taking pole position, Stewart's first and only his second, with Jean Alesi second for Sauber and Olivier Panis third in the Prost. David Coulthard was 4th, Michael Schumacher 6th, Mika Hakkinen 14th, and Eddie Irvine only down in 17th. Now, Barrichello led away at the start and built a nice lead of just over 1.1 seconds by the end of the first lap. And I'll be honest, it was a fairly uneventful start unless you are Mika Hakkinen, with the Finn catching Schumacher in P5 by lap 5, eventually passing the Ferrari on lap 10 at the hairpin, and by lap 19 he was passing Alesi for second and chasing after Barrichello. Another comeback weekend for Hakkinen. Then it all changed very quickly. The rain hit the track, resulting in pit stops for wet tyres and a safety car due to the conditions. At the restart, Barrichello led the field away, again fending off Hakkinen, who eventually had half a look at the Stewart, but he touched the white line and spun at the hairpin, dropping him back down the order. Schumacher found speed in a car set up for the wet and he dive-bombed Barrichello into the hairpin for the lead. He later pitted though, relinquishing P1 with Häkkinen once again coming through the field and finally taking the lead himself from Barrichello. What a race he was having. Both drivers though pitted for fuel with just 7 laps to go, which handed Heinz-Harald Frentzen first place. A crucial moment because the Jordan driver didn't need to pit again because at his only stop earlier in the race for wet tyres, the team took the decision to fill the car with enough fuel to get him to the end of the race. A brilliant move, which allowed Frentzen to take his second career win, leading home Häkkinen and Barrichello. Ralf Schumacher was P4, having overtaken his brother late on. How dare he, with the Ferraris of Schumacher and Irvine 5th and 6th respectively, and in the end, only 11 drivers finished the Grand Prix. Like I say, okay, perhaps not the most thrilling of races, but I remember really loving it growing up, probably because there's always something quite special about seeing a Jordan or, if you like, an underdog taking victory. Right then, time for some predictions, and as always, please don't take these too seriously. They are just a little bit of fun, and if you do disagree with my picks, then you can let me know yours in the comment section down below. And you know, last time out, I actually did all right. I'm giving myself a pat on the back. Nobody else is gonna, so I was right on pole and the sprint winner, and I am going to give myself a point for team to watch because Alpine had a good weekend and were quick. A good result as well for Ocon. It could have been better for Alonso had he not had those mechanical problems. And if you ignore all that red, it was an overwhelming success. If you do take the red into account, no, it wasn't quite so good. So let's not say any more and move on. For this weekend, though, quite honestly, I'm really struggling. Overheating tyres and cars are a big concern if it is going to be as hot as expected. And given the problems with reliability lately, I'm a bit concerned Ferrari could be in trouble. I hope not, and I'm sure they'll have the pace to compete for pole and the win, but can the car survive? Mercedes should also be in the mix because, as already mentioned, this track should really suit them. Although, in all honesty, I think they'll need some drama to take a win. And it probably goes without saying, but Red Bull will obviously be up there as well. Verstappen and Hamilton have great form in France, whereas Leclerc, Perez and Sainz have a bit more of a mixed bag. Not bad, but just a bit mixed. And you know, because the track has a little bit of everything, I don't think we can definitively say that it suits one team more than another. I mean, ultimately, that's why it's used as a test track so much. Maybe it does lean a little bit more towards Ferrari, but then we know how rapid Red Bull are in a straight line and we've got some long straights. Then again, Ferrari have closed that gap, so it's going to be really close. And I don't think one team is going to disappear with this one. So, because I'd like some more prediction points, not that I'm actually keeping track, but yeah, I'm going to hedge my bets a little bit. I'm going with Max Verstappen for pole position on Saturday, but I'm going to give the win to Charles Leclerc, and let's be honest, Ferrari could really do with a run of wins now the summer break is looming large. And yes, I am going to stick a Mercedes on the podium with Lewis Hamilton P3. Why? Well, he definitely seems happier with the car, he has great form at Paul Ricard, and he's on a strong run of results right now. But in all honesty, this weekend could go either way, so don't be surprised if we see a Sainz, Perez, Russell podium in whatever order. Now, my team to watch this weekend is actually AlphaTauri. Stick with me on this. Gasly and Tsunoda seem pretty buoyant about the upgrades coming for France, and if they do tackle their issues, the potential in the car is unlocked and they do away with the mistakes and the luck falls their way a little bit, they could actually end up having quite a strong weekend. And I'm even going to go as far as to say a top 7 finish for Gasly at his home Grand Prix. And when it comes to some other bolder predictions, I'm going to go with Fernando Alonso for a top 6 finish. And I'm also going to say that Lance Stroll, why not, picks up a point for P10. I'm also intrigued to see how McLaren gets on because the team had a decent result in Austria, and I'd like to see them build on that and hit a good consistent run of form with both drivers. But anyway, that is it for the French Grand Prix preview then, but don't forget to let me know your thoughts and your predictions ahead of the weekend in the comment section down below. Now, I will be back live on Sunday with the usual reaction stream, but in the meantime, if you did enjoy this one, then please do leave a like, as it really does help the channel out, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.